Welcome to this session on literary criticism. Dear students, welcome to the fourth session on literary criticism. As I have told you earlier, today we will be focusing on Plato's viewpoints on poetry and poets. Let us see what were the charges which Plato raised against poetry. In his famous work Republic, Plato banishes all poets from his ideal state. He said that poetry is the mother of lies. Plato disapproved poetry by saying that poetry is an expression of falsehood. Poet does not always adhere to truth. In fact, a poet need not always adhere to truth, but a historian has to. When a historian is trying to chronicle the events which happened in a society, he should stick on to truth. But a poet is not liable to do that. Anyhow, Plato disapproved poetry by saying that it's not true. It does not always stick on to truth. It's an expression of falsehood. For example, a poet may compare his beloved's face to moon. This is in fact false, but it's taken in a figurative sense and people enjoy that. So, expression of falsehood, this is one of the charges leveled against poetry. And next, corruptive influence on character. Poetry, according to Plato, should aim at the moral enlargement of humanity. It should teach some good values. Otherwise, one should not compose poetry. This is what Plato believed. So he said that poetry being the mother of lies, poetry, since it does not stick on to truth and so on, it does exert a negative, a corruptive influence upon human character. And next, he said that poetry caters to emotions and bodily appetites. Instead of having a noble cause, poetry is appealing to the inferior kind of emotions of human beings. And the next one, poetry brought forth confusing concepts about gods. Poets very often present gods as assuming manifold forms. Poets must not present the gods as deceitful. So he was totally against such confused conception of gods which is often found in various poetry. And another fact is this: poetry always tried to express everything in particular. It had its focus on the particularities of the world, and it used to give attention to the multiplicity of being. So many things are around us, and it of course gave its focus to such multiple things and such particular and minute things, rather than focusing on a totality, rather than focusing on unity and universality. And poetry is a combination of a variety of functions according to Plato, and this is also not palatable to Plato. It should have a didactic function according to him. So these were the charges that he raised against poetry. Poetry is an expression of falsehood. Poetry is the mother of lies. It exerts a negative influence on human character. It caters to the base emotions and bodily appetites, and it generates an ambiguous concept about God, and it does not focus on the universal and the totality. and it has myriads of functions, which is unfair according to him. I hope you understood what were the charges raised against poetry by Plato. Plato also tries to explain the characteristic features of poetry and how is it different from other disciplines like philosophy and so on. So in this slide you can see the basic difference between poetry and philosophy. Poetry is irrational. Irrational means it's divorced from reason. It is metaphoric, it is figurative, symbolic, and not appealing to human reason. And poetry is emotional, full of feelings. It appeals to human heart. And poetry is not something composed by human logic. It's divinely inspired. It's quite mysterious in its origin. Whereas philosophy, it refers to a realm of reason. And it's a world of eternal essence and knowledge. So it tries to acquire knowledge as a whole. And philosophy is a world of rationality. So these are the basic differences between poetry and philosophy. Plato tries to bring in the contrast between poetic understanding of justice and philosophic understanding of justice. So what is crucial here is the concept of justice. According to Plato, poetry must be a storehouse of wisdom regarding justice. But he says that when a poet is giving an account about justice in human life, it's only an appearance of justice and not real justice. So such false accounts about justice will result in the prosperity of an unjust man. So he is not satisfied with the poetic presentation of justice. And he highlights the fact that philosophy is the only discipline which can pursue and explain the real nature of justice. Now, look at this slide. Adeimantus, another speaker in the Republic, points out the limitations of poetry in expressing justice. Adeimantus brought forth 4 different charges against poets. Poets acknowledge sobriety and righteousness as honorable, but they say it is unpleasant. So the state of being solemn and the state of being righteous is of course honorable according to poets, but poets do believe that these things are in fact unpleasant ones. Secondly, poets view licentiousness and injustice as pleasant. And they even say that injustice pays better than justice. And they may also honor the wicked if they are rich and powerful. And poets dare to give wrong portrayals of gods. So these were the charges which Adeimantus raised against poets in Republic. So along with Plato and his perspectives about poets and poetry, you should also know what this particular character in Republic said about poets. He was disapproving poets by saying that they favor injustice better than justice, or they bring forth misconceptions about gods, and so on. Plato also makes comparisons between poetry and the concept of democracy. Both poetry and democracy neglect all sorts of hierarchies. So, in a democratic society, all human beings are equal. No particular group is highlighted as superior, or no particular group is belittled as an inferior one. Everybody should be treated equally. So it resists all sorts of hierarchies. Similarly, poetry is also resisting all sorts of hierarchies. And it fosters genuine individuals, manifold men who are stuffed with differences. So poetry can tolerate representations of people with differences. People are unique. Every human being is unique. No two people are alike. So all such subtle differences are tolerated in poetry. Such differing people, such differing aspects of individuality can find expression through poetry. Similarly, democracy also accommodates people with differences, all sorts of people with uniqueness, all sorts of people with subtle differences and variations. So both poetry and democracy can accommodate the differences of people, and both take freedom or liberty as a key concept. A poet should be enjoying absolute creative freedom. A poet always craves and yearns for freedom in creation. Similarly, democracy highlights the idea of freedom or liberty. And both poetry and democracy nurture all parts of the soul, and both are rooted in self-will and physical pleasure. In his work Ion, it is mentioned that the rhapsode is in a state of divine possession and does not speak with his own voice. He is merely a medium through which God speaks. So let me make it simple. You know who a muse is. A muse is a god or a goddess of poetry. And you know who a poet is. And then comes rhapsode, one who recites or chants the poetry. So there is of course a relation, a linear relation between them. The muse inspires the poet, and the poet transfers his inspiration to the rhapsode, and the rhapsode produces an inspired emotional effect on the audience. So this is explained with an analogy of a magnet. If you hold a magnet against a series of iron rings, they will get attracted to the magnet, and if you pose it again to another iron ring, again it will get suspended from the first set. Similarly, the muse is the magnet. The poet is the first ring which gets attracted to the magnet, and the rhapsode is the middle ring, and the audience is the last one. So the rhapsode, the one who recites the poem with an emotional impact, is said to be in a state of divine possession. It's not he who speaks then. It is the voice of God that you hear through that of a rhapsode. So this is what he said about poetic inspiration. In general, poetic composition and what do you mean by poetic process? This is something holy and divine. This is divinely inspired, and it does not come on its own. It comes from elsewhere. It comes from a muse, and then this emotional impact is transferred to the audience. So today we have discussed in detail Plato's perspectives about poetry and poets. So why did he banish poets from his ideal state, and what did he say about poetry? What were the reasons why he disapproved poetry, and then how did he explain the nature of poetry by comparing it with other disciplines like philosophy and so on, and why was he dissatisfied with poetic representations of justice, and he pointed out the similarities between poetry and democracy, and he also gave us an idea about what it's meant by poetic inspiration. So I hope you understood the major ideas which Plato tried to share about poetry and poets. Thank you.